Building a business is hard. It's lonely. You feel uncertain. You never feel worthy. And frankly, sometimes you don't even know where you're going or the right thing to do. You take a lot of risk. But I actually didn't think you've been told way too many lies. There are a whole bunch of lies that dominate the business narrative that you need a certain type of person and a lot of capital to grow. Some of those lies include you need a lot of capital, you don't need partners, the idea that you should raise a lot of money, go big, and go alone. The second lie is you need a lot of urgency, no patience. The idea that you better move quick and you better dominate is your only option. And lastly, the last lie that seems to sort of dominate the startup narrative is you need scale. You don't need leadership. You need a lot of processes. You don't need a lot of rituals. And we don't really want your business to be able to operate. It should operate without you. Those lies of going big and going alone, going fast and dominating. And frankly, this business needs to operate without you, are not only impending your sort of business's true potential, most of the time for a lot of you, it's probably stopping growth because you might not have access to the capital that actually allows you to do line number two and line number three well. But I can tell you, as someone that's done them, they're not really comfortable. But I could also tell you, as someone that's pivoted, they're avoidable. So, who is crafting these lies? Well, the people that benefit the most from extracting the value from your company after you do the hard work. And to put it simply, the investors. Now, why do they do it? Why do they have this narrative of dominance, loneliness, and the idea that it doesn't need you? Well, really simply, they have to convince you to sell at some point in order to get a return. And for a lot of you, there's a lot more value in their capital if you think you can't do it. So who are they? Well, I generally find they sit in three categories. Category number one, they're money managers. Most of the time, these people seem really happy. They've got split worlds. They separate their personal and professional life. They're lonely, lonely people. The second type that you'll find are generally angel investors that have been big company executives. They were individual contributors that rose to the top. They don't really know how to build a team or culture, but found themselves at the top of the system and they were relentless in executing it. And they have a lot of money and now they want to give back. Another group of sort of lost souls. The third are what we call gamblers, venture capitalists. But at some point, they went from taking risks to really just being creditors with the invention of the safe note. So why do these three types of value extractors dominate pretty much everything we do about how to grow a startup? And how have we let them? Well, for someone that likes to create value that is in none of those categories, I like to think that they've done three things much better than the entrepreneurial class or the creative class. And number one, they have phenomenal tribal rituals. They all meet in an MBA, they all meet at the same places, and they all go out in the world and manage these big systems. There is no startup equivalent to the MBA. There is no place where we all have to work as a team to get through some sort of goal before we work together as entrepreneurs. So they dominate us firstly by where they gather, which is the Masters of Business Administration. What an absolute lackluster term and a waste of time. Secondly, they have developed new instruments that really enforce some of these lies. At some point along the way, they invented what we call a safe note, the simple agreement for future equity. Sounds really safe. Not really, when rather than having ordinary shareholders at your cap table when you raise pre-seed, angel, or seed rounds, you now have creditors pretending to be shareholders. Those tricky bastards have even called it safe in order to hook you in. And then last but not least, They push loneliness and suffering wherever we can. Still, the number one most watched show is Shark Tank. The idea that someone is going to be a shark in your most desperate moment dominates entrepreneurship and is almost accepted as a way of doing things. You'll be much better off in your second company. It'll be much easier the second time you exit than the sort of idea that we can create more value here and you can go it with a group versus going alone. So those three things have really allowed them to dominate the narrative when it comes to growing a business. But we think there's another way. I've walked it, others have walked it. There is more than one path to growing a business and keeping these extractors out of it. Because once you let them in, the clock starts. And it's very, very hard to get away from them and to turn that clock off, which could eventually turn you from being a value creator yourself into one of them. So we don't think investors are the only option. We think there are big, slow-moving counterparts that are struggling to innovate that could be an option for you. If they see and need your unfair advantage, and two, they have big distribution, and in order to keep it, they have to grow, evolve, and sustain with new position. Effectively, they have to evolve who they are to keep their position in the market and their share price going in the right direction. Now, you might be asking yourself, Tom, you're talking about really big companies that might need what I have, but can't do it themselves. It's exactly what we're talking about, Maka. But you might also be asking yourself the question, well, why don't they just buy me? Pretty simple. They can't afford it. Maybe they can't afford another acquisition. Maybe they've made too many bad ones. They're unsure. They don't really know what the unfair advantage can do to their positioning. And last but not least, they've made a few bets already and it hasn't gone right. They don't have their own confidence of their board or their shareholders. Acquisition is always the most thrown out term because guess what? Those that have invested, it's the way they get their money back. You can imagine a world where one of your angel investors is an executive who drove a company, didn't really get them anywhere, got rich doing it, exited, now is investing in startups to give back and get that founder energy, and is now trying to sell that company back to the old place they worked in order to realize value. To me, that sort of just sounds like they didn't fix a problem and they're taking a few licks of the same ice cream. And at the same time, you're getting fucked in the process. But hey, that's why acquisitions aren't always the way. They haven't really worked out. They don't always get the realized returns. And frankly, we miss the huge market to the side of acquisitions or the step just before it, which is strategic distribution partnerships, or what we like to call counterparts. But hey, maybe I can walk you through my experience to show you what these things can look like and show you how I can give you an alternate path to growth. Now, I start my journey in my first 12 months at sort of scrapping, cold calling, prospecting my way through as a B2B business and eventually getting over 400K in revenue. Surprise, surprise, really needed, almost run out of cash, just landed it before we had to make payroll for the last time where we had $7, but we fucking got there. After we landed at 400K, we did probably about 250, pre-seed pitches, and we eventually landed a $1 million investment at a $5 million valuation. Pretty fair for a new business, untested, with a pretty unique unfair advantage in the way we do aptitude testing. The next jump we made really simply was 1 million ARR. So that $1 million investment helped us move from a service business with a bit of software to being a true software company. By becoming a true software company, we developed a unique unfair advantage. We actually developed 3 of them. Those 3 unfair advantages in our outreach were seen by Ernst & Young, a company that had turned up last to marketing government consulting in Canada and was looking to change its position. By working with us on a joint offer that we called a super team and having a 3 to 5 year contract signed, That contract being signed, which awarded us a large government contract vehicle, allowed us to raise it at $25 million valuation. Cha-ching. All of a sudden, the game has changed for a group of first-time founders with a really unique unfair advantage, but honestly, no idea of what they're doing, no acceptance in any startup program because, quote, we're too intense. And fundamentally, last but not least, veterans really don't know how to build global companies. All those things really stuck us. But at this point, at a $25 million valuation, we raised 5, and it's all because of the strategic partnership that we unlocked with Ernst & Young. Now, within that 18-month period from that 1 million, getting that signed and then raising again, we were able to do 15.2 million in ARR. So just stick with me for a second. We haven't spent any money on advertising. We've rarely spent any money on salespeople. I think we had about 4. And we've been able to make a jump with less than 5 million of injected capital from 1 million in ARR to 15.2 in 18 months. Eureka, we're on to something. We have found a counterpart. We are driving revenue through distribution through a large, slow-moving B2B acquisition process that's almost impossible to replicate and scale globally. We fundamentally changed the game, and all of a sudden, we went from being a diamond in the rough, if you stumbled upon it, if it was thrown down and you found it in the trash, to being a darling. And our valuation in business changed drastically. And if we went on to raise any more capital, we still significantly earned the majority of our business. Now, that story that we just told, we think anyone can do it. Their business has an unfair advantage. And as founders and CEOs, they're willing to have partners. They don't want to go it alone. So we launched a vision, and our vision became a really lofty one. The idea that value creators can overcome value extractors for the entrepreneurial growth model. And that growth model is driven by unconditional love between partners versus faceless, soulless, lonely extractors driving processes, instruments, models, and mechanisms. All of those people can fuck right off out of our space. And to do that, we built a community where we can do it with you, do it for you, or you can learn from the community to do it yourself. And teaching really just 2 steps. 1, how to elevate your company's soul, drastically changing its positioning by making a lofty version, values that attract people and motivate them, and quantifying your unfair advantages to your position in the market. And finally, showing you a very simple framework to find, attract, and close large, slow-moving counterparts that see and need your unfair advantage. What's it like? Well, there are 6 milestones that you go through with us. You can see them here. It's not for the faint-hearted, requires a number of breakthroughs, applications of tools, and courses to get your final answer. It's a program where you can get guided by the community that you're a part of, and at the same time, guided by someone that's done it before. But the big sticking point for everyone is, can they move from being a lonely founder to a great counterpart and partner? That mindset shift is really tricky. There's a lot of benefits from being lonely. You might actually, on paper, have more equity and more value if you're lonely. You might have an ego dopamine that can't be replaced by a partnership. And fundamentally, you might want to tell your own story of suffering someday. All of those things really stop great businesses being unlocked, which could have been unlocked through partnerships. So what you can't expect from this program, though, and what we're not, is a door opener program. We're not just here to open doors for you and to build an open network of doors. Although our members do deals with each other, don't assume that at all. And 2, a participation program. You can't stumble your way through this. You fundamentally have to evolve and transform. The idea that you can do this as a partner versus an individual is a huge transformation, almost like going from single to being married. It requires a whole different approach to how you solved problems before. So, is it for you? Well, we think when founders go from I to we, it's a little bit like Joseph Campbell's heroes. You have to cross the threshold, take on the shadow self, all those things that being lonely are actually could have been valuable to you when you first started, and go all the way around to bringing the gift back or the elixir back. And in a really simple motion, you're going from I to we. The whole system is built around I, because if you build it around I, then founders have no protection and therefore their businesses can be taken from them. But if you start saying we, and then a movement and a tribe starts to follow you, founders, it's almost impossible to be taken out by an investor and extractor because they don't know what power looks like until a group with a lofty vision, set values, is attracting partners and blowing revenue targets out of the water at little to no operating cost. So if you think you can go I for we, and you think this could be a path for you, well, how do we know that we're the right partner for you? Well, we have 3 values at our company. One is keep room to trail. We work with those that want a decorated guide, not an instructor or a coach, but a guide, and then want to become one. You have to want to go on the trail that someone else has had and then clear it for someone else. This isn't a small problem. We're looking to do this with 1,000 founders, but once it gets past 1,000, God knows what happens. Hopefully it really shakes the model of those that currently own it, extractor type. Value number 2, we counterparts lead. We want to work with those that change the status quo and see us visionary as a tribe versus visionary as an individual. That's a big shift. It's a shift that you need to be successful in the program, but it's also a shift that our community needs in order to win. You can't just be a passenger here. You have to take it forward with others and do it well. And every member has to be a partner. Last but not least, our last value is we model unconditional love. Intense, truth talking, frankness, getting on with it. You don't really have time. Even with an alternate model, we have to be direct, be transparent, move with rapid candor, and at the same time, give you safety to make mistakes. Because disagreeable founders that do something bold generally always want to wrestle with the ideas before they deliver them. So our last value is we model unconditional love. If those 3 things sound like something that you resonate with and they excite you and you want to be a part of them and you want to apply them, well, what next? Well, we offer a 1-hour breakthrough session where we look at your unfair advantage and elevate it or unlock it. We look at your market positioning and commercial model and how to modify it so it's more attractive to those big partners and they can work with you easier. Or we take our framework and one of your partnership options and we help you unlock it. At the end of that session, you can think of it as 2-way vetting. You'll know if we're the right partner for you, and you'll know if you'll see our unfair advantage, and we'll know if you're ready to move from I to we. But if you don't believe us, check out some sessions below. Don't waste our time. And when you're ready, click here.